My home was ruined by a terrible blaze. At 65, I went to find shelter at my child's house, but he refused me, saying his fiancé required solitude. In despair, I contacted my initial sweetheart, a person I had not encountered in 40 years. When he opened the entrance to his grand residence, he uttered only 3 phrases. "You have returned home at last. My existence was transformed completely. But prior to proceeding, ensure you have joined the channel and note in the remarks from which location you view this video. We enjoy learning the distance our tales reach. My name is Grace, and at 65 years of age, I believed I had faced all forms of hardship existence could offer. I was mistaken. It began on a Wednesday that appeared ordinary in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was in the cooking area preparing my midday coffee when I detected an odd odor. I chose to investigate, assuming perhaps I had forgotten an item on the burner. Upon opening the sitting room entrance, I encountered a barrier of fumes so dense I could scarcely view through it. Fires were already engulfing the drapes and climbing the surfaces with a velocity that rendered me motionless for several vital moments. The alarm device ought to have sounded, but I discovered later the power source had expired months earlier. A minor neglect that would deprive me of all my possessions. I hurried back to the cooking space, searching clumsily for the telephone to alert the emergency responders. But the fumes were present everywhere, hindering breathing, rendering clear thought impossible. I heard glass shattering and understood I lacked time. The fires were devouring my dwelling with a fierce appetite that appeared uncontainable. My sole idea was to escape alive. I seized my handbag, located on the cooking table, and rushed toward the rear exit. The final sight before I emerged outdoors was the image of Robert, my deceased spouse, beginning to darken from the warmth. The nearby residents were already on the roadway when I staggered out, breathing heavily and inhaling sharply. "Mrs. Jenkins, my 78-year-old adjacent dweller, was the initial to approach quickly, embracing me as we both observed powerless while the blaze consumed the residence where I had resided for more than 40 years. The emergency team reached in 10 minutes, but it was already past rescue. They succeeded in preventing the fire from extending to adjacent properties, but mine was irreparable. In merely 1 hour, 4 decades of recollections were reduced to cinders. The cooking table where David completed his assignments, the surfaces that bore the indications of my child's development, the sleeping area I occupied with Robert for 37 years, it had all vanished. I remained on the pavement covered in a cover someone had placed over my shoulders while the responders performed their duties. Afterward, they would inform me it was probably a wiring fault in an aged sitting room socket, a basic power issue that converted my existence into wreckage. The fires eventually diminished, leaving merely a darkened fuming framework. The emergency leader neared me, his expression covered with ash, his gaze filled with sympathy I could not tolerate at that instant. "I regret deeply, madame. We attempted all possible, but he needed not complete the statement. I could observe it myself. A complete destruction. All I owned, aside from the attire on my body and the items in my handbag, had disappeared. The nearby dwellers, fortunate to retain their residences, accommodated me for the initial evening. Kind Mrs. Jenkins demanded I remain with her, but her tiny dwelling was already filled with visiting grandkids. The American Red Cross had established urgent refuges, but the idea of resting in a large hall full of unknowns rendered me feel further adrift. That is when I realized I must contact David. My child resides about a 40-minute journey distant in Valentine, an upscale Charlotte area with tree-lined roads and homes that appear taken directly from a publication. He relocated there 4 years prior when elevated to area supervisor at the coverage firm where he labors. We were not intimate, not as parents and offspring ought to be, but he was my remaining kin. I utilized Mrs. Jenkins' telephone since mine had dissolved with all else. David, dear, it is Mom. I stated, my tone feebler than planned. Mom, what occurs? You seem disturbed. A blaze occurred, child. The dwelling is destroyed. All is destroyed. A silence that seemed endless. Injured you? No, I am okay. Merely some abrasions and an irritated throat from the fumes. But I require a location to remain while I resolve matters. Just briefly. Another silence. Certainly, Mom. Arrive here, we will arrange it. The ease that enveloped me was so strong I almost fell. My child would care for me, despite our separation, all the ignored contacts and uneasy festive meals. He remain my offspring. I passed the following morning gazing at the burned remnants, awaiting the coverage evaluator to come. He appeared exactly at 9, a youth who seemed he preferred any other place, examining what remained of my residence with a notepad and a device. Complete destruction, he stated practically, as if those pair of terms did not signify my whole existence. How much? I inquired, though fearing the response. Well, your coverage was around $200 0 on the building, but with your payment required and value reduction, we speak perhaps $90 0 perhaps lower. $90 0 to reconstruct 42 years of existence. It appeared unfeasible. Mrs. Jenkins assisted me purchase some essential garments and hygiene items with the urgent funds the Red Cross provided me. All I presently possessed fitted into one tiny loaned case. That was it. It was everything remaining of the existence I had constructed. The journey to David's residence seemed like a trip to an unfamiliar nation. All appears altered when you lack a return place. Known spots, the fuel stop where I always purchased my chance tickets, the eatery where Robert and I enjoyed Sunday meals, all seemed to pertain to another's existence. Now David's area was spotless as ever. Ideal grass, ideal paths, ideal existences proceeding precisely as prior day. I sensed like an outsider, carrying my misfortune into their immaculate realm. His residence was a two-level traditional with pale barriers and a crimson entrance that Victoria, his fiancée, had selected. I had encountered her precisely 3 occasions in the 2 years they had paired. She was 30 and he was 39. She labored at a central advertising company and held a view on all from the shade of the surfaces to the variety of drink to offer at meals. I directed the taxi into their path and remained still for an instant, collecting my bravery. This is brief, I informed myself, just until I determined subsequent steps, just until the coverage funds arrive and I locate a modest dwelling somewhere. I never pictured that approaching my child's front entrance with my small loaned case would rank among the most difficult actions I had performed, but as I lifted my hand to strike, I experienced a known dropping sensation, the identical empty sensation I had when Robert passed, as if the ground were vanishing under my feet. I simply did not realize yet how much further I was to descend. David opened the entrance before I could strike, as if he had observed for me. For one instant, viewing his known face, Robert's gaze, my own firm jaw, rendered me feel everything might be fine. He was my child, my sole offspring. Surely lineage signified something. Mom, he stated, moving aside to allow entry, but his tone contained something I could not exactly identify. Separation, perhaps, or unease. Victoria emerged behind him nearly instantly, as if awaiting in reserve. She donned pale pants and a silk top that likely exceeded what I once spent on a month's supplies. Her brown locks were drawn into one of those casual knots that oddly appeared ideally arranged, and her grin was the type that never fully contacted her gaze. Grace, how awful about your residence, she stated, but she viewed my worn case, not me. David informed me what occurred. I placed my case down in their perfect hallway, abruptly aware of my appearance. My recently acquired garments, inexpensive and plain, appeared misplaced against the shiny stone of the corridor. I could still detect the fume odor attached to my locks, despite the wash I had at Mrs. Jenkins' residence. It is just brief, I stated rapidly, just until I regained stability. David and Victoria shared a look, one of those silent partner dialogues that excludes all others in the space. I had observed Robert and myself perform identical countless times, but from outside it seemed they excluded me from a group I was unaware existed. Let us sit and discuss, David stated, directing me into the relaxing area. Their residence was lovely in the manner publication residences are lovely, all coordinated, nothing misplaced, pale furnishings that appeared no one had truly occupied, glass beverage tables that mirrored the illumination from panes so spotless they seemed unseen. It was the type of residence where you feared contacting anything. I sat on border of the flawless couch, my new footwear solidly on the perfect wood floors. Victoria observed and recoiled mildly. So what is the strategy? David inquired, placing himself in the seat opposite me, not beside me on the couch where he could embrace his upset parent, but across as if conducting affairs. Well, the coverage evaluator stated it will require several weeks to handle all, perhaps a month. I hoped I could remain here until then, just until I secure a tiny dwelling or similar. The quiet that ensued extended about 10 seconds beyond normal. I observed Victoria's expression alter. I noticed her chin tense nearly imperceptibly. She bent and put her hand on David's limb, a motion that appeared aiding, but was plainly claiming. Mom, David started, and I recognized from his tone that the following would shatter my heart. The matter is, Victoria and I have conversed, and we truly cherish our solitude here. We labor extended times, and this is our haven, if you understand. I blinked, not fully grasping. I would not interfere. I would remain private. I will assist with preparing meals, tidying. I will not inconvenience. Victoria bent ahead, her tone gentle but solid. It is not about inconvenience, Grace. It is about room. This residence is our initial joint dwelling, and we are still discovering our pattern as partners. I am his parent, I stated, the terms emerging harsher than planned. Naturally you are, Victoria answered fluidly, and that is why we believed you would prefer elsewhere, somewhere you can retain your autonomy while you reconstruct. I gazed at David, anticipating he would oppose her. To recall, I was the lady who remained awake with him during every illness, who labored extra periods to fund his learning texts, who grasped his hand during his separation 3 years prior when his former spouse departed for a fitness instructor. Instead, he agreed, Victoria is correct, Mom. We believe you would prefer your own area. The terms struck me like a bodily hit. I truly sensed my torso tighten as if someone compressed my lungs. Preferred, David. I destroyed all yesterday, all. And you believe I would prefer alone in a lodging chamber than here with my kin. It need not be a lodging, Victoria stated swiftly. There are some pleasant long-stay locations near the shopping center, very neat, very secure, and they include small cooking areas, so you can prepare for yourself. I stared at this lady who had entered my child's existence for 2 years, instructing me where I ought to reside after losing my dwelling. And how am I meant to fund this pleasant long-stay location? The coverage funds will not come for weeks. David moved uneasily. I could assist with that. A few $100 to begin you, a few $100. As if I were a far relative he scarcely recognized, not the lady who granted him existence. David, I stated, my tone scarcely a murmur. I swapped your nappies. I soothed you during your stomach issues. I instructed you bicycle riding, and I aided your assignments. I embraced you when you wept because Lucia Velasco shattered your feelings in secondary school. His expression contorted mildly, but Victoria pressed his limbs stronger. No one doubts your past, she stated. We simply believe all would prefer some limits. Limits? I had heard that term from the counselor David consulted after his separation. All concerned limits. You are expelling me. I stated plainly, we are not expelling you. David objected. We merely say perhaps this setup would not suit anyone. Whose concept was this? I inquired, though I knew the reply. I could observe it in Victoria leaning back mildly, content, as if she had triumphed. We decided jointly, David stated, but he avoided my gaze. I rose, gradually, my joints snapping in a manner reminding me I was 65 and solitary globally. I comprehend. Mom, avoid that attitude. We attempt what suits all. What suits all? I echoed the terms as if Foreign, what would suit all, David, is if your parent need not rest on the roadway tonight. Victoria's ideally prepared face twisted into worry. You need not rest on the roadway. As stated, options exist. I viewed the flawless, relaxing area one final time, at the kin images including David and Victoria, but none of me at the costly furnishings, no one truly occupied. At my child, who selected this chilly, lovely lady over his parent. You are correct. I eventually stated, options always exist. I lifted my small case. Its mass seemed greater now knowing where I was unwelcome. David rose, appearing troubled, but not troubled sufficient to alter decision. I will contact in several days, he stated, once you settle somewhere. Avoid effort, I stated, amazed by my steady tone. I would not wish to intrude your haven. Victoria possessed the grace to appear mildly regretful, but not sufficient to voice. Not sufficient to declare. Stop. This is incorrect. She is your parent. I departed that ideal residence with its ideal pair and its ideal limits, and remained on the pavement long before forcing myself to proceed. Through the front pane I could view David and Victoria conversing, likely about my difficulty. How much disturbance I introduced to their calm existences. The sarcasm was not missed. I had passed years post Robert passing convincing myself I was capable, self-reliant, that I required no one. Now, when I genuinely required aid, I learned self-reliance is an extravagance affordable only with choices. I proceeded to a small, economical lodging on the corner and expended nearly all remaining funds on a chamber for the evening. Resting on the firm mattress, gazing at the flaking surfaces, I attempted to determine where a 65-year-old lady with nearly no funds and one case of inexpensive garments was meant to head. That is when I recalled the contact card I had retained in my billfold for almost 40 years, amazingly preserved since it was with me during the blaze, faded with time and smooth from frequent touching. A card I never expected to utilize from a person I cherished when the globe was fresh and all appeared achievable. Randall Galloway, the person who vowed to return for me, one day before existence interfered, and the day never arrived. I passed 3 evenings in that inexpensive lodging before gathering bravery to place the contact. 3 evenings awakening with aching back from the slim pad and the flavor of disgrace in my mouth. 3 evenings hearing disputes in the passage and steady hum of vehicles outside the poorly sealed pane. 3 evenings cleansing my few new garments in the tiny washroom and suspending them to dry on the chamber's lone seat. The contact card seemed like thin sheet between my digits, worn even from 4 decades of retention but never application. Randall Galloway was inscribed in dimmed azure ink. Below that, a telephone digit with an unfamiliar region code on the reverse in my own young script, never forget G. I had inscribed those terms at 25, trusting with youth's total assurance that Randall Galloway would be my grand affection. He was 26, with dark locks falling over his brow and gaze the shade of warm gold. He labored for his parents, building firm post-college, and envisioned greater aims of creating something significant. We paired for 9 months, which at 25 seemed endless. He would drive me to the vista on the slopes beyond the city, where we would rest on his vehicle hood and discuss our intentions. I will launch my own venture. He would inform me something with building or property growth, something rendering me wealthy enough to provide you all deserved. I will return for you, Grace, he vowed the evening prior to departing for a task in Atlanta. I will create myself and then return and wed you. But vows at 25 tend to diminish when actual existence dominates. He penned notes initially, extended, fervent notes, filled with visions and schemes. I replied describing my banking position, how I awaited as vowed. Then the notes became briefer, rarer. When I encountered Robert 6 months later at a worship gathering, Randall seemed a lovely vision once held, too ideal to exist. Robert was reliable, dependable, already 32 with solid employment at the telephone firm. He offered not the globe, but a dwelling kin safety. When he suggested after 5 months pairing, I agreed. I placed Randall's contact card in my bridal gown pocket, a hidden keepsake I could not discard, now 40 years later, resting In an inexpensive lodging chamber smelling of moisture and old tobacco, I pondered what became of that visionary man with warm gold gaze. I tracked him irregularly over years as with initials. Affections, via shared acquaintances. I learned he fulfilled vows, launched a building company, became prominent. He never wed, surprising others, too occupied constructing his domain. They would. State Galloway was ever driven. The latest I learned, perhaps 8 years prior, his firm expanded past North Carolina to Atlanta, Georgia, and Miami, Florida. Galloway Development, constructing retail centers and work complexes. The youth from the building firm became the type wearing costly attire and deciding for many. What would that man desire with a 65-year-old buried in economical lodging with merely a case of discount garments? The logical mind portion stated it was absurd, pitiful even. You avoid contacting someone post 40 years because existence collapsed. You avoid seeking young affection when aged, needy, nowhere to head. But logical thinking is extravagance when tallying coins in purse and determining sufficient for another evening. On the fourth dawn, I could endure no longer. My back pained from firm pad, funds depleting, and lodging warned need chamber for incoming reservation next day. I sat at chamber's small table, gazing card, hands shaking. Beyond dawn cold, what to state? Hello, Randall, recall me. Homeless now, aid possible. The digit on card likely inactive, or connect to assistant politely stating Mr. Galloway too vital for random. Ladies claiming past acquaintance, but suppose not. Suppose he responded. My pulse pounded as I entered the digit. Each number seemed a leap from height. It sounded once, twice, Galloway Development. Randall here, his tone deeper now, shaped by years and duty, but clearly his. Post 40 years I would identify anywhere. I nearly ended, nearly pressed terminate and sought alternative, but something in tone, warmth seeming to pierce telephone and envelop like cover, prompted speech. Randall, it is Grace, Grace Thorne. Well, Grace Robert now, but formerly Thor. Silence sufficient to think, perhaps disconnected or ended, or perhaps unaware who. Then Grace, merely my name like plea or marvel as if unbelievable. Regret deeply contacting thus, I hastened, terms pouring in urgency to clarify. Before end, no long past and likely not contact, but unaware else to seek. Location you, he cut, tone keen with worry, in Charlotte at lodging named Rest Stop. No sounds mad, but dwelling blazed last week, destroyed all, and child unwilling me remain, and nowhere head. Terms flowed in rush, each tougher than prior. Confessing own child rejected like confessing failure at basic humanity. Provide precise address, Randall stated, tone now fully occupational. Coming retrieve you, need not that, merely unaware why contacted. Suppose needed friendly tone, Grace. Tone permitted no debate, state location, walking to vehicle now, over telephone, heard door shut, motor start. Truly coming, this man unspoken 40 years dropping vital affairs to save from economical lodging, provided address, tone scarcely murmur. Randall appear, not girl recall, nor I, he stated, heard grin in tone, awaited 40 years this contact. Post ending, past next hour gathering few items, switching panic disbelief. What performing, what we performing. Insane this, cannot resume relation post 4 decades like yesterday dialogue. But viewing lodging pain, awaiting vehicle unrecognized, carrying man perhaps not recognize me, sensed something unfelt since pre-blaze. Hope, perhaps foolish hope, perhaps lead further letdown, further pain, but hope anyway, and at 65 nothing remaining lose, hope worth gamble. At 10:45 precisely, silver luxury vehicle stopped front lodging, shining polished against worn street backdrop. Peered Payne as parked, pulse striking ribs like bird fleeing cage. Payne's tinted, unseen inside, but deep chest informed him. Motor off, driver entrance opened. Even post 40 years, even gray locks and eye corner lines, even bearing decades weight unshared, recognized instantly. Randall Galloway exited vehicle as from dreams, and gazing up Payne where stood, years dissolved between, as never been. Seized case hurried stairs, speed fearing dream fade wait long, standing by vehicle awaiting. Randall same calm assurance at 26, now refined, success maturity polished. Donned dark pants navy sweater likely exceeding once monthly supplies cost, but gaze, warm gold haunted dreams decades, identical. Wished conceal, wished return chamber pretend not occurring, appeared awful, locks uncut months, inexpensive garments creased, sensed tiny insignificant beside refined man awaiting. But already grinning, grin rendering pulse leap as 25 again, approached slowly, abruptly breathless. Hello, Grace, softly, up-low, observed time changes. Dark locks now mixed gray, trimmed short occupational. Lines framed eye corners shaped mouth, broader shoulders, solid, success physical mass granted with else. But grinning, viewed youth overlook took dreams tell. Hello, managed, tone scarcely murmur, studied face long instant, warm gold gaze absorbing detail. Wished regret appearance, far fallen, contacting post years nothing offer but issue. Instead, stated 3 terms altered all. You appear lovely, began weep, their pavement front economical lodging Randall Galloway beside, fully unraveled. 40 years restrained tears, 4 days uncertainty despair. Lifetime informed insufficient, all emerged ugly heaving sobs uncontrollable. Said nothing else, attempted not quiet or state fine all. Merely took case one hand other limb around as collapsed chest his. Smelled costly scent clean wash, success stability, all lost never had, sweater soft cheek, limbs strong trembling shoulders. Regret choked chest his, regret Randall, not contact should, not involve mess this, SHH murmured hand back stroking. Contact years prior should, tears eventually eased, withdrew gaze, embarrassed damp spot left costly sweater. Must appear catastrophe, reached wiped tear cheek, touch soft whisper. Appear someone hell endured survived. Not catastrophe, Grace, strength that, laughed, emerged shaky bitter, strength, 65 I, dive lodging stay own child unwilling me. Not strength pathetic that, chin tightened, instant viewed anger concealed flash, child yours fool A, know him not, need know not, know you, paused, hands lightly, shoulders still. Or knew least you, Grace Thorne knew a way turn need in someone, kin especially. Way stated maiden name, precious kept years all, chest ache longing woman once was. Long past that stated, girl that not anymore I. Perhaps not, agreed, but meat woman became she like. Placed case luxury vehicle trunk as treasure, not cheap bag all world left containing. Opened passenger entrance me, momentarily amazed situation unreality. Blazed dawn, dwelling had recollections, decades built existence. Now entering vehicle man unseen 40 years idea next what? Head we wear, inquired motor starting as home, simply stated. Journey nearly hour took, passing wealthier areas increasing until reached section never viewed before. Hills, rolling properties, dotted stone walls, iron gates behind hidden. Trees professionally placed seemed, mailboxes likely exceeding most vehicles' cost. Randall long path turned marked small brass sign Galloway read only. Path curved mature trees manicured landscapes through before circular entrance opening residence breath took away front. Flashy ostentatious not, elegant real wealth elegant way, subtle, assured built endure, stone wood tall panes afternoon light cot porch invited sit stay while. Randall whispered, monument gazed, achieved he all. Incredible this, parked vehicle out not immediately. Instead sat house viewing as through eyes my seeing, big two quietly stated, always been has, built thinking fill day one but shrugged. Gesture familiar heartache made, dreams some out planned way work not, married never, question out slipped stop could before. Turned gaze me, expression unreadable, close came time's couple, but missing always something, paused beat, then simply stated, you. Term hung us between silent vehicle, charged 40 years what-ifs could been. Wished inquire meant what? Wished comprehend how missing life never part from could I, but words find could before, already vehicle out, front rounding door my open. Residence stunning more inside even, floors wood gleamed honey-like, ceilings high, furnishings belonged architecture, publications looked but cold museum-like feel not. Books everywhere, chairs reading comfortable panes near placed, photos tables and scattered, felt home someone lived actually, not success showcased just. Hungry you? Randall inquired, leading kitchen old relaxing larger than. Lunch make about was called you when. Realized starving was. Lodging meals stale bread weak coffee only been. Stomach cramping emptiness nerves. Trouble any be not want I, began, but look with off cut. Grace cease, trouble not you, you answer question 40 years asking been I. While cooked he, and cook know actually how, huge kitchen around moving ease someone himself, caretake, learned had decades. Photographs room throughout scattered studied eye. Randall ceremonies cutting ribbon at, hands shaking people important with. Randall women various charity events business meals at, smiling always, happy completely looking never but. Life you're about tell me, stated plate chicken grilled perfectly vegetables roasted placing front me. Robert about tell me child you're about missed I everything about. So did I. Lunch over tasted heaven post days lodging food terrible. Marriage my about Robert him told, steady comfortable, security companionship giving, passion not if. David about, baby desperately wanted loved, fiercely up grew stranger Fion. Say comfort over mother needs valued who. Years about good wife being, mother good, widow good, blaze taken owned I everything about, child taken left had I everything. Who Randall listened interruption without, warm gold gaze face my leaving never. Finished I when, silent long moment, regret I, eventually stated, regret Robert about, residence you're about, child. You're about, but regret, not called you me. Why? Question out smaller intended then, reach table across hand my his in took. Strong still, gentle still, heart race make able years all post, because loving you stopped never I, quietly stated. Because deal every made I, success every achieved, dollar every earned. All worthy be could I so you when back came finally you me too. Randall, no sounds crazy this. No 40 years time long and people different now we. But voice your heard I phone that on today when, peace missing life my in place clicked finally like was it. Hands joined are viewed, tanned kept well his, worn work by mine, 65 years every showing. Girl remember you not I. Better you, disagreed he, real you, lived loved lost survived and, girl 25. Year old beautiful was, potential only but. Woman potential that up grew be to you. Terms heart my around settled blanket warm like. Wounds healing known even not still carrying was I. Time longer remember could than first for. Seen felt not mother someone's or wife someone's or burden someone's as myself as. Now happens what? Inquired I. Randall smiled. Smiled devastating same world young was when him for fall made. Now outfigure lives our rest what together look, me have you if. Sat beautiful kitchen, his food good possibility filled with. Realized sometimes blaze old life, your destroys room just making life always meant have you for. Randall with living myself version discovering like forgotten, existed had I. Week first strange, other each around polite strangers sharing space tiptoeing like. Entire guest sweet house his me gave he. Room old relaxing larger than. Bath private tub too fit could. Sitting small area gardens his overlooking. Staying luxury hotel like felt. Touch anything afraid or presence my evidence much to leave. But Randall patient, successful men learn way. And gradually relax start I. Housekeeper had he Maria came days 3 week, but days other on myself found cooking him for. Small started coffee morning making, lunches simple preparing, But Randall appreciated everything enthusiasm someone buffet food restaurant meals decades eaten had who. Incredible this, stated evening one. Chicken dumplings savoring grandmother's recipe used made had I. Home, cooked meal like this years in had not I. Fancy nothing it, protested I, but inside glowed I. Time last when anyone cooking my appreciated truly. David complain used same 5 dishes over made I that. Victoria suggested once flavors contemporary more try dinners family for I. Randall head shook, perfect it. Perfect you? Word perfect uneasy make should me. 65 gray roots showing expression lines, permanent grooves become had with. Hands age spotted with, body soft places used firm be too. Perfect but anything I. But Randall me looked when, eyes his in reflected myself saw beautiful someone as, love attention gentle care worthy someone. Routines into fell breathing natural felt as, breakfast together ate porch back where Randall reports business read, birds feeders elaborate his watched eye. Walks afternoon took property around where gardens himself planted showed me greenhouse orchids grew hobby as where. Evenings talking for, 40 years up catch had slowly did it carefully, archaeologists precious artifacts examining like. Hard been lose Robert how him told, emptiness house months afterward about. Force myself bed out every morning about. Loneliness widow, hood about. People treat you half person once husband gone way. Business his about me told. Grown small construction company, development, empire projects 3 states in with how, women dated years over about, smart, accomplished, perfect, looked next him charity. Events at, whole feel him made never but who. Woman one was, stated night one fireplace, his near sat we, rain windows against drumming. Elena, architect was, brilliant, beautiful. Everyone said perfect each other for we. Jealousy pang felt surprised intensity it's with me. Happened what proposed I, quietly stated. Christmas Eve years ago 5. Show big restaurant city overlooking. Ring expensive. Everything wanted she said. Yes said she. Wedding planned summer following for. But date closer got as. Feeling kept having wrong something that. Her with not. Everything want could anyone wife in. But me with. Paused he, fire into staring, night before wedding off called it. Randall, no, her tell you what, truth the, me looked he, eyes serious, love and still woman met 40 years ago, fair not be marry her heart, my belonged else someone while. Terms hit physical blow like me, wedding you're cancelled me for, memory me for, possibility someday somehow need you I here waiting be would you and. Looked successful handsome man anyone have could this, process trying was telling he what, crazy this stated I. Is it, forward leaned he, hands my his in taking. Crazier kept business card my wallet in 40 years for you that. Right he, crazy both we, ghosts living both what been might, but somehow, odds all against, crazy brand particular are together back brought us. 3 weeks arrival my post, David contacted. Kitchen Randall's in dinner making humming myself to was I. Humming actually, years and done not had I something, phone my rang when. David named screen on stomach, my clench anxiety familiar with maid. Hello dear, stated voice neutral keep trying. Mom, tone odd his, controlled carefully, trying call you been I. Phone your voicemail straight to going keeps, true that, calls my screening been I. Ready not deal guilt obligation whatever David imposed try might me on. Busy been I. Busy what doing? Heard. Checked out hotel weeks ago you. Living you where? Around Randall's beautiful kitchen looked I. Flowers fresh morning that home brought had he at. Glasses wine expensive counter on. Staying friend with I. Friend what? Mom, friends with money have not you. Assumption offended me his, partly true been had long so after Robert died because. Friendships most my fade let I. Tired too proud to maintain relationships nothing offer return in when had I. Surprised be you would, coldly stated I. Pause there, Information this processing him here practically could I. Mom, think talk need we. Victoria I situation discussing bin and think maybe hasty too were we. Maybe stay guest room are in while ever could you. Feet you're on back get until just. Offer month ago everything meant have. Would now hollow felt me too, insulting even. Mind change you made what, pause another. Realized maybe own needs are on focus too were we. Family together stick to needs, meant he what, realized I. Probably heard neighborhood gossip network through mother his longer cheap hotel staying know that. Someone mentioned seeing her man dressed well nice car and with. David curious was, curiosity generate. Him made had kind very you of that stated I. Happy perfectly but am I where? Mom move in stranger a with just cannot you, safe not it. Know even you what person this about, no never made feel. Burden a me he quietly stated I. No values company my cooking my appreciates, beautiful me tells day single every end, wedding first my like not was. Robert married when years ago 40, all about expected else everyone what. Dress white, ceremony church, reception center community DJ cash bar with that. Invited everyone knew we people several and not like particularly we because did you what? That's ritual performed community for ourselves for not. Time this, Randall, I exactly wanted we did. Ceremony place took backyard his crisp November morning on. Months 5 call phone hotel that post. Pastor friend old Randall's was. Witnesses only Maria. Housekeeper the Marcus. Partner business Randall's friend best years 25 of end. Dress blue simple wore matched eyes my said Randall that suit. Gray wore distinguished handsome look him made he and. Fuss no, fanfare no, stress no impressing anyone of. Just people to each other found again post 4 decades, promising spend time whatever. Left had together they, David wedding to came, debated had I invite even him whether. Randall convinced me try time one more but, son you're he, simply stated, regret will you not give him chance. Right make it if, so contacted him weeks to ceremony before. Randall I married getting our, flatly stated I. November 15th 2:00 at, come to welcome you, Victoria invited not but is, showed up, alone he, uncomfortable looking suit, probably cost grocery monthly my than more in. Hand Randall shook politely, talk small polite maid managed even smile strange pastor, us wife husband declared. When but calculation eyes his and see could I. Weight inventory took Randall's house of, car his, wealth markers obvious. Morning this, woke up arms Randall's in, husband my arms in, room ours, became that in, house home our became that in. Sunlight windows through streamed gardens together tend we overlooking. Smell could coffee Randall makes morning every up wake I before. 66 at, happier ever been I've then. Money Randall's because not house beautiful his success his or but sees me someone, truly sees me, chooses love sees he what end, fire old life my took, consumed it ash, turned end but sometimes, think I, watch Randall paper morning his read table breakfast across as, destruction word another just renewal for is, sometimes lose everything thought wanted you to find, everything truly needed you have to. And sometimes lucky very very are you if, love first chance second gets love forever become two. Business card kept 40 years for framed now is, desk Randall's on, sitting office home his in, reminder some promises keeping worth are, decades 4 takes it when even them on deliver to, story the like you did, city which from listening you are and, comments in meet let's, story the like you if, thanks super sending by me support can stories like this more bringing keep I so. Support sweet your for much so thank you. Story the on comments your to forward. Looking I'm screen the on. Recommend highly I stories life new to see can you. Channel my on more much so there's. Subscribe to forget not don't. Story life next the in you see. Respect and love. With story the like you did. City which from listening you are and. Comments the in meet let's. Story the like to you if, thanks super sending by me support can stories like this more bringing keep I so support sweet your for much so thank you. Story the on comments your to forward looking I'm. Screen the on. Recommend highly I stories life new to see can you. Channel my on more much so there's. Subscribe to forget, not don't. Story life next thee in you see, respect and love with.